doing jury selection for a jury trial up in that building. So I want to take a look at the movement of people and the processes, because we have a lot of different elected officials that work out of that building. We want to make sure that we can make the most effective use of that building and being able to look at the people flow and all that type of thing. So we'll be in Payson tomorrow. Tomorrow night is the legislative reception at County Supervisors Association. Starts at 5 or shortly thereafter. And then also the County Supervisors Association, the Board of Directors meeting on Thursday. But I will be, so Payson and Phoenix the next couple of days. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Manlove. Supervisor Humphrey.
Yeah, I held a Gila community meeting on the 10th. Christine accompanied me at that meeting. And so did Animal Control and Joel from Rhodes. And I held a Tono Basin community meeting on the 6th. And that's about all I have.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Klein.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So tomorrow I've got the Coalition of Counties. Well, no, I don't. I have ECO tomorrow. The other day I had a meeting with Coalition of Counties. A lot of discussion on that over different things, mostly budget for this up and coming year. But we got it all said and done and situated. Tomorrow is ECO. I'll be there at that meeting, and then I'll be at the reception as well. So I'll see you there, James. And then the following day, of course, is CSA. I'll be in the CSA meeting, and then at 1:30, I believe it is tomorrow afternoon, I have a meeting with the Director of Farm Service Administration there in Phoenix. And so I'll be down there for a couple of days, basically. The other day I was in Payson on some other matters, but I had a meeting with Matt Pachorik, the Payson District Ranger. Back a while back, well, less than a year ago, the feds changed their delegation of basically decision making and things. It put a lot of it to the ground. So Matt Pachorik is the ranger and the one that handles a lot of those decisions between Pleasant Valley and Payson. Matt has been the one that we've worked with all this time on the Pleasant Valley Veterans Retreat, going through all that. So I went back to him on the subject of just who can use that Veterans Retreat and who cannot. And so his interpretation of it was just like I've told everybody through the whole thing. And also in the special use permit, I believe you were shown this as well, James, at the bottom, it spells out that other groups can use the Veterans Retreat as long as it's in support of the vet center, of operating that center. And so Matt is going to send me a one-page in-writing type deal that'll coincide with that as well. And that's the document we're running the retreat under right now until the bill is signed. And so I think, by all means, I think we're good to go. Nothing there. After that, I had a meeting with the lady from ADEQ, Brianna Goldberg. Really good meeting. Very energetic young lady, and she's asking a lot of questions. I believe you talked to her the next day, Christine, about landfill, air quality, a lot of different things there. But a very nice young lady. I think she'll be a good liaison for us. She's going to be a liaison for Gila County, Navajo County, and Apache County, between the counties and ADEQ. And that's it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Woody. That's really good news to hear about the retreat. That's going to open up a lot of opportunity and be good.
The whole goal is just to make sure that any money raised like that is going into our project, the Veterans Project, which is easy enough. So
that gives us a good flexibility. I also met with Brianna with ADEQ just before you did. Very pleasant young lady. I think she'll be very helpful as a sort of an in-between. So ADEQ monitors our landfills. If we do have difficulty at the landfill, we don't understand what's going on or how to fix it, then she's the lady that helps work that out. And I was on the radio yesterday, on Monday, it was good, everything went fine. I will be at the legislative session and the meeting to follow the next day, tomorrow as well. And I went to the State of the State, what do you call it? Chaos? No. The opening of the legislature. Okay, so I went to that, which is fine, and did that. And the governor is going to be coming to Payson on February 25th to do it again at the casino. And so kind of a non-political, non-campaigning kind of a meeting, which is good that she's selected Gila County to do that. I think that's a nice thing. Met with Christine and Wayne Jones last week. Went well. Updates on roads, future projects, and things like that. So that's always good. And like I said before, welcome aboard, Matt. And so we got a lot to do in that department. So we need to all kind of work together. That's kind of all I have to do as a report. So if there's no other discussion about the reports, we're going to move on to item 6, the work session. 6A is information discussion regarding potential flood recovery financial resources. And Maren, are you presenting on this or who?
Mr. Chairman, if I could take a moment to kind of introduce what we're hoping to accomplish and do here today. First of all, Mr. Vela, that we have under contract, has been working extensively to identify the projects, potential projects that we have, things that we can do. There's a lot of timeliness, as you are well aware of, that because of the NRCS projects, National Resource Conservation Service, that they are very limited in their time, and so it's imperative that we move as quickly as we possibly can on these. So if it's all right, to have Homer come and give you an idea of the projects that he's identified, what it's going to take to do those, and how the funding for those will work. And Homer's been working to identify the ones that are most imperative that we need to get done. So there's a certain amount that he will present, probably in the neighborhood of $13 to $14 million. Then after that, have our questions of where we're at with projects, things that need to be done. I have Mr. Mark Reeder here today that is our advisor, financial advisor for bonding and that. He has a presentation, and when Ms. Belling and I have met with him, we went on kind of on the high end. And so his presentation will be an amount of funding for $18 million. So there's a little bit of a difference, but this is just a discussion today. It's a work session to help us be more informed of what's going on with all that, and then what our options are as far as obtaining financial resources to cover the projects that you identify are the ones that we need to do. So if that's all right, Mr. Chairman, we'll go ahead with Mr. Vela to start with.
Thank you, James. Good morning, Homero. How are you?
I'm good.
And Tom is also helping you present.
Good morning, Chairman and board members. Wanted to share with you 6 slides. They build on each other.
Oh, thank you.
And I've tried not to crowd too much numbers in any one slide. So hopefully I can get through the 6 slides quickly, and we can get to the major topic at hand, how much funding and how do we get the funding. One of the things that I heard this weekend, I was watching a football game, none of my favorite teams are left to watch, but I heard a commentator say something like, pressure is a privilege. And it made me think of Gila County. And the reason that I think about Gila County is because we have the pressure of time and the pressure of money going on right now. But it's really in some ways a privilege to be able to partner with NRCS and capitalize on 75% cost share from them to put forward some durable and permanent projects. So right now there is a lot of activity going on with the team to try to meet the dates. and we're gonna look at the dates, a little bit, but, we are moving forward. We've learned a lot from the Telegraph fire. One of the things, we have today that we didn't have that then is like, six-shooter and Russell Gulch. We have designs, that at that time were at least 90% complete. Yes, the storms changed some of the topography, so we have to go back and look at them, and we're looking at them from a standpoint of not just cost but also time. So there is a great benefit from the work that we did with Telegraph Fire, and the team is working as diligently as they can to meet that 220-day deadline that we have from NRCS. By the way, that deadline, we're not there yet. That clock starts ticking when we get funding approval. We expect that to happen, hopefully, in a positive way, 3 or 4 weeks from today. So let's go to slide number 2. Oops, I'm in charge, right? So this was meant to show you the list of projects that we're working on and the sources of funding. And you see that we have DIFM at the top, Russell Gulch sediment removal. That's $1.2 million. The county implements that. It's at, we don't have a cost share associated with that. Now, we're gonna be submitting that project to DIFM this week, and we're waiting for them to nod their heads. They indicated to us that money was available and we could use it for this purpose. So hopefully it's a quick yes from them. The other projects that you see, the ones in the green font, are NRCS projects. And these are projects that, in my mind, are permanent, they're durable, and they're needed. And whether it's because of the September-October storms or because of a future storm, we need to do something with Copper Hills, for instance, and six-shooter. Both of those roads are subject to getting washed out at any one of the future storm events that we have in the future. Russell Gulch restoration, actually, if you look at sediment aggradation across the county in general, you'll find that there really isn't a lot of aggradation. By that I mean, if you drive around Bessage Drive at the hospital, the surrounding sediment is almost at the level of that low water crossing. However, at Hospital Drive, there is 3 or 4 foot of sediment. And so the reason for that is that culvert actually acted as an impediment to flow. Water slowed down, dropped the sediment, is the short story for that, okay? But we do have a difference in sediment. If you look across the county like Bixby Bridge, today, if you go out there, no one has removed the sediment, but if you go out there and you look from the top of that bridge down to the bottom, you'll see patches of concrete. It's got like about a ½ an inch of sediment. So some of these storms have washed the sediment away. And when we start talking about sediment later on, when we get to the blue section, it's mostly removing piles. It's not going into the washes and then having the sediment be redeposited, but it's removing piles that we currently have. But back to NRCS, we have a number of projects. One of them is a flood warning. It's a small dollar to put into additional rain gauge and flow gauges. One in Ice House and one on Russell Gulch. The others are about repairing roads, bank stabilization, Russell Gulch, which is maximize flow across Russell Gulch. Ice House is to make sure that that crossing doesn't get washed out in the future. And then the hospital wall is a project on here as well. We aren't gonna fund any portion of that. The hospital's gonna fund, the Cobra Valley Regional Medical Center will be funding 100% of that and will be responsible to meet all NRCS requirements. Yes, Supervisor Klein.
So to start with, since we're on the hospital flood wall, when you look at it for $939,000, you see a 25% match under the county immediate share. Are you saying that we're not doing that?
The hospital will have to provide the 25% match.
So then we need to take out that $234,000 out of this then?
Correct. And I'm not on the bottom, and so I did. If you look at that chart, you see a total line, and then you see a total without the hospital wall, and you see that there's a difference between 8.1 million and 7.9 million.
Yeah, to me, it'd be simpler just to zero those out up there on top or not even listed, Homer. The other thing I wanted to ask you is on the flood warning, when the telegraph fire was all said and done, we went to the effort of putting up a lot of rain gauges and warning systems on that mountain at the time. What happened to all those?
In Gila County, I looked at that actually. There's something in excess of 30 active flood gauges operating in Gila County today, scattered from from Pine all the way to Dripping Springs. And last night I was actually looking at them, and most of them were reporting out. Okay, and so we're just trying to put in gauges. Some gauges, when we say rain gauge, sometimes it doesn't have a flow gauge. It's not telling us the depth. These two gauges are going to have a radar type system that measures the depth of flooding, the depth of flow, without actually having a component inside the water. And that's kind of like the reasoning behind the flood warning gauges. Answer the question, or do I need to?
Kinda, sorta. We'll see later down the road.
So, and again, those are projects that we feel are permanent, durable. We pay 25%, NRCS pays the other 75%. Some of the benefits from that is NRCS, like I mentioned last time, takes care of all the environmental permitting. They're willing partners. The state conservationist and the local team approved it. It's in Washington waiting approval. It was submitted January 10th. The other section, the blue font, is FEMA DEMA, and the cost to the first one is called Emergency Protective Measures, and that's the cost to test the sediment, which we have to do, evaluate the test results, come up with a work plan on how we're going to handle it. All of that's required by FEMA. That's what we're doing. And I'm sorry, Emergency Protective Measures is the sediment removal that the road yards and other measures that were taken immediately after and during the storms. And so our teams have put in $441,000, but there's another something like $400,000, but there's $250,000 that we're trying to use for the October storm. So there's in the numbers that you see in here, you see both some September storm numbers and some October storm numbers. And when we start talking about FEMA, we have to distinguish the numbers that you see here are the total numbers that we think we will have for both September and October, because we're trying to come up with a total number of dollars that we need for both projects. So the 661 includes what we already have accounted for, a little over 400,000, plus another 250,000 that we're forecasting that our teams can do to do additional sediment removal as needed, or other things that need to be done quickly that we can do ourselves. Okay.
So you're saying this 661,000 plus another 200 and some thousand dollars?
Excuse me?
So the $661,859 under emergency protective measures, we're gonna pay for that.
We essentially have undertaken a little over $400,000 of that work already. We have already done that work. And we kept track of it. We got it listed. Now we're asking FEMA to reimburse us for that amount. That I would call it in kind. That's work that we do. Yes, but it's cost us. It kept our HERF team from doing other things. So we incurred a cost that was associated with storm recovery.
Okay,
that we would like FEMA to reimburse us for.
I get that, but FEMA's already rejected us, right?
So we have two levels of funding from, one from the state and one from FEMA. Okay, the state, if we don't get a federal declaration because it's being appealed, then DEMA normally partners with the counties to pay 75% of the emergency work. If we get the federal declaration, then the feds pay 75% and that state will pay another 15%, so we end up only paying 10% of that cost. But it's being appealed rather rigorously by the state, because one of the things that they forego in getting us a federal declaration is they don't have to pay us 75%, they're only gonna pay us 10%. And actually the state, you'll see later on the slide how inconsequential the federal declaration is for the county. The state is the one that's driving that, and we will support them, of course.
Right.
But it means a lot more to the state than it means to the county. We're gonna show you a cost from FEMA with and without the federal declaration on slide number 3, I think it is, okay?
Okay.
So the debris management is what I started talking, I jumped the gun a little bit. That's the testing of the sediment. In other words, we have to test for 13 metals plus barium. We test for hydrocarbons, that means gasoline and diesel and oils. We test for lead and asbestos as needed, okay? So for example, and we've already issued a contract to do this work. It's $185,000, and it includes a $15,000 contingency. It's very likely we won't spend that $15,000. But we actually tested Russell Gulch last week. We tested Kellner Pit, the 2 piles that we have at Kellner Pit, and we tested the sediment piles that we have adjacent to the landfill. We already have results for Russell Gulch for the important stuff, and that is the metals and for hydrocarbons, and they came in below detection level. In other words, they're not contaminated. They're very clean, sandy sediment. What they did is they dug trenches on Russell Gulch just so that you see that this is not just go grab a sample, and they pothole, and they pothole till they found either native soil or the subgrade that was put in to build the Russell Gulch improvement last time. Okay, and they actually identified that in some places it's 3 to 4 foot deep, like at Hospital Drive, to Vestige. You can see it, but they confirmed it by actually potholing and hitting the subgrade. And when we talk about Russell Gulch sediment removal, we would remove that sediment that I just talked about down to the subgrade. And we're actually going to have our surveyors take the previous plan that we had prepared by the engineers and actually survey out the depth that they have to dig along the way. So they only dig as much as we need to dig and no more. And we're going to remove that sediment, and that will go to Kellner Pit. So the testing is ongoing. We do know, because they tested the sediment piles, that there's one pile with a lot of debris and some odor, and there's another pile with almost relatively no debris. Kellner Pit has some debris in it, but not significant. Actually, in Kellner Pit, they also detected an odor. Where they detect odors, then they do an E. coli sampling as well, and will let us know what we need to do with that. The simple fix is to use chlorine bleach 10% solution, and they use their water trucks, just like when they are wetting the soil to keep the dust from taking place. They would be doing something similar, but on purpose for treatment of the E. coli. So that was covered emergency debris management. Household debris, we have 2 piles, a little over 700 tons. Most of it comes from Storm 1. So later on, you'll actually see a slide that separates Storm 1 from Storm 2. And the bulk of the cost for household debris is attributed to the first storm that had 500 tons of debris collected up there. We have another, like a total of 740 tons, I believe it is, that we need to move. That has extensive asbestos. We're treating it as one pile of material asbestos that needs to be hauled to Apache Junction. And it'll be hauled under the provisions of ADQ and others, that load is covered and is treated special at Apache Junction. They have a place for that type of material, and that's where it will be deposited. It'll be chain of custody, documented all the way through, meet the FEMA, DEMA requirements and the ADEQ requirements. And that's the plan for the household debris. The sediment piles, they're in excess of 14,000 cubic yards. One of the plans that we're seriously considering is to spread that material at that existing lot. That lot is, yes, it's adjacent to the landfill, but also it's adjacent, it actually, part of the floodplain encroaches into that lot, and it is adjacent, right next to a floodway. So it probably not a good lot to be putting future landfills in, okay? So one of the things that we can do is we can spread that material on that lot and save some money. Originally, the cost for hauling that material to either Kellner Pit or Castle Dome was in excess of $2 million. So in rethinking that a little bit and just depositing leaving the material there, flattening it out, and actually converting that lot to a lot where future sediment can be put in without having to incur a cost of moving later on. This notion of collecting piles and not having a place to put the sediment, we need to have a long-term strategy on how we're gonna do better the next time we have a storm. We need to have a ready place to go. One of the places that we went is to the it's to the fairgrounds. There is a place at the fairgrounds that we may use for sediment if a Kellner pit fills up and we underestimated the amount of material that we could put into Kellner pit, and we need more space to put some Russell Gulch. There are places in the fairgrounds that we can place this material with no harm to anyone. Actually would be a benefit in some places to kind of level off some places that could benefit from that. So those are the kind of things that we're looking. Kellner pit, yes, we put material in Kellner pit, and it comes with a cost. It's not free. There's a good neighbor agreement, but it's not free. We have to reseed and contour that pit when we're done. And so the cost to do that, the cost to test it, the cost to monitor what's happening while it's taking place is, as you can see, $522,000. And then other FEMA projects. So the last time that I was here, I didn't talk about other FEMA projects. And by the way, county manager said that I'm working on identifying these projects. The whole team is working on identifying these projects. Most of these were already here when I got here, okay? But the last time so we have an opportunity. FEMA came to visit us in October to talk about the September storm. And we gave them a list, and then we gave them another list that says, we fine-tuned it. After our last work session, we fine-tuned it and gave them a 60-day project list. That's like an official list of what we're gonna work on for the September storm. And they don't want us to add to that list. The numbers can change, the costs can change. It was estimated cost, but they don't want the list to change, okay? But what they didn't do is they didn't come to visit us and do an applicant briefing on the October storm. That's scheduled for this week, I believe, okay? And so when that normally starts the clock ticking. And so we haven't given them, here's the things that we're gonna do for the October storm. And later on, we can talk about what are the things that we should be doing with the October storm. Well, actually, other than the piles, we haven't really had time to look at the other things that we could do. And if we wanna do them, because it's a matter of money as well, okay? So we didn't have a number associated with October items that we can do for the October storm. But Russell Gulch sediment removal is an October storm. But we said we were gonna be doing that with different money. So then we look around and we ask ourselves, well, what about the El Camino Road in Claypool that has ditches that are rectangular concrete culverts that the mines must have put in when they built that subdivision that are collapsing. And then you have the road called Calle de Loma, street on a hill, that has driveways that have collapsed, 2 driveways that have collapsed that we need to repair. Concrete driveways actually that go over this rectangular concrete culvert that I'm talking about. So those are things that could be on the October list for FEMA. But we need to ask ourselves, are those the most important things for us to do? And how much money do we allocate for October storms? Today, you see $2 million here. For the purpose of estimating how much money do we need, we put $2 million in here.
Homer, I have another addition to that discussion. The berm down there in Dripping Springs, I think you showed it on the one presentation you had there, and I don't remember all of our discussion about it, but the flooded went around the end of it and went down both sides of that. So this morning I learned that that's gonna end up being a big issue for a lot of those people down there in the future for any future floods.
That is not on this list, as you can see. And the reason it's not on this list is because that berm is right in the middle of a floodway, not at the edge of one. Like the flood wall at the hospital building is at the edge, not of the floodway, but it's actually at the edge of the floodplain. But that berm is actually forcing water to go around it on both sides. It's in the middle of a floodway. And so we need to find a different location for that berm. Also, I think that's BLM land where that berm is at. And so it presented two obstacles for us that we didn't know if 220 days allowed us to think our way through that project. So the team concluded that instead of addressing the berm, let's address the low water crossing and put in a durable low water crossing and meet with the owners and tell them, hey, if you need to protect your property, you have the right to protect your property from that berm without doing harm to others. And whether that berm gets actually moved over by the constituents by building their own berm alongside on their properties, I think that's something that we need to look at, give them a recommendation on how they could do that or who does that. But that's where we're at on that project.
So I'd like to look at this project a little more in depth than that even, Homer. We're working on a lot of private properties and fixing and helping people. This in my opinion is no different if it's something that can be done. And so I understand where you're saying that probably originally when they built that dike, they built it maybe in the wrong place or over years it back flooded it behind it, I don't know. But I think this is a project, in my opinion, that we need to take a close look at to see what we can do to put it back to secure those people the best that we can. I do not feel comfortable about pushing it off on the constituents, not when we're spending this kind of money in all these other projects. You know, we're spending, well, we're not, but Difflam's gonna spend over $1 million on removing sediment that's just gonna wash right back in there on the next flood. So I think it's only worth our while to look at this one a little more in depth and see what we can come out there with.
Okay, we will do that.
Thank you.
Okay. And so if you look at the total project without the hospital wall, it's 38 million. If you look at the cost for NRCS, it's 7.9 million, and for FEMA DEMA, the projects, the county share for us would be 100%. Just let's make the assumption that the county share is 100% of the FEMA DEMA because we don't know of the repayment schedule. Okay, so if you look at it that way, then it's $5.3 million of FEMA DEMA projects, 7.9 million of NRCS projects. If you look at the deadline, you'll see that the deadline has moved. FEMA actually has given us an extension to do the sediment removal and the debris removal projects. We have till May 25th to do that instead of March 27th. Okay, that was at our request, and they agreed. So if it's okay, I'd like to go on to the next slide.
I have a question, Romero. You keep saying we on all this detached money and all the work that we're gonna do. Is that gonna be subcontracted out, cleaning all these creeks and stuff, or are you gonna expect the county crews to do that? Because we're already behind in most of the things that we have on our schedule to do.
So the NRCS projects are gonna be done with a contractor. We actually have gone out for a request for qualifications to put in place a contract manager at risk.
But we don't have bids on this, so we're just kind of guessing blue sky on what it's gonna cost us?
The cost is based, our engineering firm develops the cost. There's a 20% contingency, which is normally at the high level, built into these costs that you see. And yes, the cost is, there's risk there. And we don't know what availability of contractors sometimes has more to say about cost than anything else. So we need to hire somebody that is committed to doing it within the 220 days. And we believe, to the best of our ability, that these costs on NRCS are within the cost plus the 20% contingency.
Okay.
So one of the things that the contract manager at risk would do is they would come in and sit down with J.E. Fuller. J.E. Fuller is actually here at the back of the room, Joe Loveridge and Cole Cooper. They would sit with the engineering teams and consult with them on, this is a quicker way to do it, this is a lower cost way to do it, and trying to contain the cost. Of course, if the costs are reviewed by NRCS, and if NRCS thinks the costs are excessive, they'll let us know. I think your concern, Supervisor Humphrey, is that, are we gonna be back here asking for more money later on?
Well, yeah, not only that is, you know, like I say, 50% of the constituents are in my district. A lot of these projects, most of these projects are in my district. And if we're gonna use county labor to come and do some of this stuff, then we're gonna have culvert projects, we're gonna have road projects, we're gonna have other projects that we can't do because we're busy doing stuff.
None of these projects would be done with county employees, except for the very top line. If somebody calls and says, hey, I've got a plugged culvert out here, and we can associate it with the October storm, then we would do it, but we would get reimbursed for doing it.
Okay.
Potentially, or hopefully. So I don't think we're taking away from what the core responsibility of our team is. We're actually helping fund some of these activities that are storm related with FEMA money. Okay. Next slide. So wanted to show county funding required this year, okay? And if you add up everything under the 14 million that's in red font, that adds up to 14 million. The NRCS projects, we just mentioned 7.9 million. And the FEMA-DEMA subtotal is $5,363,744. That would be that's the immediate cash flow to us. I'm reading off the last column because it assumes that FEMA-DEMA is going to take a long time to pay us, and we need to find something where to reach out for that cash today. On NRCS, it only accounts for 25% of our local share. Okay. So we're not paying for NRC. NRCS is going to pay us as we go. Of course, every month they may, because it's $30+ million of projects, every month they may be submitting a $3 million invoice that we have to pay, and we need to have the cash to do that. Okay, and then we get reimbursed 75% of that from NRCS sometime later, 30 days later. But immediately we would need cash to pay the invoice, while NRCS takes a reasonable amount of time, 30 days or so, to pay us. We would need to be funding that as well. So FEMA-DEMA is of course different. We don't know when we're going to get paid, and what you see there is a couple of columns. One that's a project cost. The other one is what's our share for the September storms. I put down that our share is 10%. That's where the federal declaration come in. For the October storms, there is no federal declaration application. So we're just working with DEMA directly. And so that our local share is 25%. And so I split up the projects, and I split up the emergency protective measures at the bottom to come up with the county share and the immediate cash flow that you see in red font. So $14.2 million. Now, like I mentioned, the NRC projects have a 20% contingency. That's high, but what they don't have is project management. Who is going to manage the project? And that perhaps it should have been included in here, but in the discussion that we had in recent moments, we uncovered, hey, we haven't covered the project management. Normally, an engineer oversees the project from an engineering standpoint. That doesn't mean they have to be here every minute of the day, but if there's a question that comes up, how do I interpret this design? And this is standard practice, by the way. How do I interpret this design? Then that request for information goes to the engineer, he responds. And at the very end, he puts together as-built drawings so that we can have a record of what was actually built. And they attend weekly meetings with the contractor, and they're asking questions of the engineering team all the time, and the engineering team is answering back. That's part of that cost, project management. The other cost is somebody like Steve Williams doing some work to manage the project. So we will need somebody like that, somebody almost full-time to do NRCS projects. So that cost is not included in the 14.2, even though a 20% contingency is, okay? And the FEMA projects don't have a lot of contingency. That actually are numbers that the contractor has given us, Safeware, who we plan to contract with once we finish the negotiation of the debris removal. And those are numbers that they've given us based on the quantities that we gave to them. And again, the quantities were surveyed by a surveyor. We did 3D modeling. We feel comfortable with the quantities. On the other hand, the sediment piles continue to grow every day as the road yards continue to dump material on one of those piles. So those are the things, those are the moving parts that we're dealing with right now.
Homel, just to clarify, so at the bottom of this page, you have an additional $900,000 for engineering professional services. That is part of the 14 million, is it not?
That is part of the 14 million.
You just stated that it wasn't, so.
The engineering services are the design services. So we have a contract with J.E. Fuller right now for $500,000 to do design work, okay? And which, by the way, is a small amount of money compared to the $30 million of design that they're doing. Usually, the design cost for a construction project is 10% of the construction cost. So, and the reason that that number is low is because they've done engineering before with the telegraph wire, okay? So they leverage, but that is all a design work, okay, with a contingency. They have a contract for $500,000. We add a $250 contingency for any other thing that may come up that we need engineering support for these projects. The other one, professional services, that includes like myself, and I'm a small fraction of that number that you see there, but it also includes DRS. We actually hired a company that for $15,000 phase one. If we get the federal declaration, we can hire them to do more work for us. We would get reimbursement from FEMA for their services if we get a federal declaration. But one of the things that they're gonna do is they're gonna help us evaluate the Safeware contract for sediment removal to see if the costs are appropriate and to see if it meets all the FEMA DEMA requirements, okay? And so that's a line that you see there. And then there's other professional services. I don't know what they may be, but we just put a number in there that we think is a good placeholder and a good level.
I'm just trying to keep up with you here. So we are at a 14,208,000 estimate of what the county is gonna have to put forward to make these projects happen, of which some we may get reimbursed.
Correct.
Okay.
And you'll see that exactly that type of thinking in the next slide or the following slide.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
to tag on to Supervisor Humphrey's comment of internal versus external contracting, and it's been brought up of a project manager potentially hiring that or doing it in-house. I would strongly recommend that we need to hire a project manager to do this because we've seen, and Supervisor Humphrey from
I would second that.
the bushfire, that we had several NRCS projects that we didn't get done in time, so we lost the funding for that. So I would strongly recommend that we go down the path of hiring a project manager to ensure that these NRCS projects get done timely.
Okay.
And that cost is not in the 14.2 million. That would be an additional cost.
Homer,
But
real
again,
quick.
there's puts and takes that take place, right? One is we have a 20% contingency. We may need it all. We may need none of it. We don't know till we finish the design and get the contract manager at risk to give us a number. The FEMA projects, we're constantly looking for cost reductions on the FEMA sediment removal. And as part of evaluating the work that the contractor turns in, for example, project enablement or the debris management that we saw earlier, there was 185,000. 2 or 3 months ago, that was 300,000. The cost of removing sediment, in total, the cost for removing sediment for the county, when the number that was available to us 3 months or so ago, or 2 months ago, was like $5.5 million. And today, it's still $5.5 million, but the difference is back then, they were thinking they would have to remove 16,000 cubic yards. And today, we're thinking about removing or moving 28,000 cubic yards. So there is cost reduction taking place as we move forward on the FEMA-DEMA side. There is contingency on the NRCS side. But when we have a cost that was not included in here that's added onto it, we just need to be aware that that's an add. And that's my only point.
Homer, real quick, this additional EPM reimbursement, what does that mean?
It's Homer's weird way of thinking that those costs, we're actually not going to the bank and borrowing money. We're borrowing money from HERF because we're using HERF people to do the work. And so it says additional, you can take the word additional out. And it should just strictly mean EPM reimbursement.
So that's just paying HERF dollars back for our
We're paying
crews?
HERF for the work that they did, and we're asking FEMA to reimburse us for $661,000, which we would get an average of 20, we would get between 10, we would have to pay 10% or 10% on the September storm, 25% on the October storm. The math takes care of all those numbers for you, and so you see $103,000, okay? That we would have to pay for and get reimbursed the difference. And we're one slide away from that making more sense, okay?
Okay.
Because it explains that. So the next slide is the FEMA-DEMA reimbursements, okay? So if we look at the FEMA-DEMA reimbursements, at the very top line, you see $5.3 million of FEMA-DEMA projects, okay? And then we look at it with the federal declaration. The September storm, 1.4 million is the reimbursement that we would be getting. And the October storm, 2.3 million. And the EPM emergency protective measure reimbursement would be $558,000. That is if we get the federal declaration and we get the DEMA money for the things that are here that happened in the October storm, for a total reimbursement of $4.3 million, and we would be out of pocket, or our share would be $1 million. Okay. If we don't get the FEMA declaration, then we're having to contribute 25% for the September storm as well instead of 10%. And our cost, at the bottom line, the county share, the FEMA project cost doesn't change, it's still $5.3 million, but now our county share goes up by almost $300,000. So $300,000 in the middle of 30 million, for me, is inconsequential. It shouldn't drive a decision. We shouldn't worry about the federal declaration in making our decision. We should worry about time, and we should worry about where we're going to come up with $14 million. The state needs to worry about the federal declaration, and we'll support them. We're worried too. We'll get more money, okay? But it's less important than some of the other things that we're facing, is my point, okay? And so the last slide is just a lot of numbers, and I wanted to summarize it for you. Total project cost, a little over $38 million. Cash outlay for both storms, $14 million plus project management. FEMA-DEMA reimbursement at 75%. Suppose worst case happens and we don't get a federal declaration. So FEMA may reimburse us $4 million X number of years from now. County costs with reimbursements. So let's say we get reimbursed 10 years from now. What would our cost have been to initiate $38 million worth of projects? It would have been $10 million. Okay, that's our cost after reimbursement. And a cost funded by other sources, there's the $28 million that we're leveraging others to help us where pressure is a privilege. So there's a lot of work to do. A lot of work is happening. We got the extension from DEMA. The CMAR RFQs come in. We submitted to NRCS, very successful. We put in a benefit cost of 7-to-1. That means for every dollar we spend, we get $7 of benefit. We're very optimistic about NRCS. The designs are underway. There's weekly meetings taking place, multiple engineering leaders for each project, like I mentioned last time. The whole team is excited. They're concerned. There is pressure, okay? But we'll do with the pressure, as long as we get the result that we want to get. And so what are the remaining critical milestones? The next slide, it talks about, it's kind of like risks as well. We need money, and Gila County needs to figure out how we get the money. If we get the money, should we get the money? That's why we're here today. The other one is NRCS is still, like, we don't know. They haven't approved it yet. If they don't approve it, then we will have to quickly rethink, and maybe we should start rethinking what the next plan would be. We haven't done that yet. The FEMA declaration is being appealed, and so $300,000 is at risk for us on that decision. DIFM, we need to present the proposal to them, and they need to nod their heads. The Forest Service needs to agree on Kellner Pit. They're waiting for the results. We're going to be probably providing them the results later today. And then the project timelines that we have, all the things that we need to do. Get the design ready, get the CMAR in place, CMAR contractor in place, work with the hospital on the agreement that we need to put in place with them that they need to sign. We haven't done that yet. We've got a draft that we're going to share with county attorney later today, via email or in person. And we just gotta have a game plan and check off the things that we need to get done. On the FEMA DEMA side, with the extension that we got June 25th, it's a very doable. Those are very doable projects from a time standpoint. NRCS is still, we constantly work toward that 220 days. Clock hasn't started ticking yet, but it will in a couple of weeks, I believe. And we just need to be very, very stingy with our time.
Mayor, did you just say June 25th? Because previously you said May 25th.
June, I'm sorry, it's June 25th.
Okay. All right.
It is in one of the slides, I think. Oh, yeah, it's on the second slide where it shows the deadline dates. And it
Okay.
shows 6/25.
Oh, yeah, there it is, okay. And then you used DEMA and DIFM both.
DIFM, we're competing with other counties for the money. There's no magic date there.
Okay, so the DIFM money is different from the DEMA money?
Yes. Department of Forestry and Fire Management.
Yeah.
Actually, the governor appointed money to DIFM at the Telegraph fire, and we were able to use some of DIFM money for many different things. Almost like if you had I don't remember, we must have had a state declaration, but they offered money that we could use. It's very easy you would submit, you would describe what you wanted the item for, the work that you were gonna do, and then you would have cash in a matter of weeks. It was not like going through the DEMA process. That's very complicated, and you get paid at much longer after you completed the work.
So DIFM would be preferable?
DIFM is limited funding.
Yeah.
They talked about $2 million, and they wanted us to share some monies with the cities. And so we're not consuming the whole amount, but we're kind of running out of time. We're afraid another county may take the money, so we're going to submit for the Russell Gulch
Okay.
sediment removal using
And
DIFM
why don't we go after all of this with NRCS rather than FEMA and DEMA? Why are we splitting those two funding sources? I just need to understand that.
NRCS, all of them have like rules, and one of them is they wouldn't necessarily pay for some of the things that we're doing with DEMA, like debris, like handling the debris and the sediment piles. They could perhaps pay for Russell Gulch sediment removal if we made that part of the restoration project. One of the advantages that we have in having DIFM funding to be used for Russell Gulch sediment removal is that we move that project forward in time, and we don't have to wait for NRCS funding to do that. we can get that done. They can finish, the engineers know that we're doing it. They want pictures every week from us on what's happening out there, because they're banking, the restoration of Russell Gulch is banking that the sediment, more than, actually 14,000 cubic yards of sediment will be removed by the time the contractor steps on the site. So we're kind of like moving that project forward with different money. And yes, it would be, if the state were to find a way to make monies available without the incredible bureaucracy of FEMA, DEMA, like they did for DIFM, what a blessing that would be for everyone. Maybe even costs could be reduced when you do things that way. But we have limited funding there today.
The 14,208,000 you said would be the number plus project management. You also said that there might be enough money in that 14 million to pay for project management because of the contingencies, et cetera. Do you have an estimate if we have to add complete project management onto that number, what that estimate would be?
I'll give you a range, $1 to $3 million.
1 to 2.
1 to 3.
1 to,
So
one-
it depends
Okay.
what kind of project. If you want to have somebody on site all the time and making engineering decisions, then you're going to the high side. If you're using the engineers only when questions can't be answered and a project manager is there keeping track of the work, that can be less. Typical project management costs probably range between 8 to 10% of a project. Now, this is a big project, and so I reason, well, it should be less, but I'm not gonna interject my cost reduction things right now. I have to tell you, it's probably between 8 to 10% of the project cost.
Okay,
If you were to ask me for a typical cost.
thank you.
Any questions? Sorry that I last.
Yeah, I have a question, and, you know, we're reaching for money and things of that nature, that's all good. I'm wondering, what's being done for the damage to the public, like United Fund? Where's that money at? How's it being dispersed? And Walt Blackman is putting in a bill for $25 million from the state, for us. And so how, does that play into any of this? Is that more private, or how, you know, how's all that gonna lay out if, you know, I mean, I understand that we're trying to prepare and be ahead of the curve, but you know, I'm just kind of wondering where all the buttons and knobs are. And so if we could sometime have a work session on some of that as well.
Certainly, Mr. Chair, Supervisor Humphrey, I'll take my county hat off for the moment and stand here as the United Fund Executive Director. United Fund has successfully distributed $1.97 million to, I believe it is 85 different businesses and a variety of households. The household distributions are being handled through the Salvation Army. Susan Guerrero presented an update at the City of Globe Council meeting last Wednesday, where she shared that the upper limit for direct household support is now at $30,000 per household. The businesses in the first round were eligible for up to $5,000, and then an additional $30,000 over and above that if they met funding criteria. That was all handled through the through Local First, and there were a few of those disbursements that came over into 2026 where we were trying to get all of that narrowed down and buttoned up. And we are continuing because of the availability of contractors and the mobilization time that it takes to get things done on private properties. That will continue throughout 2026, depending on what those household needs are. The Salvation Army believes that they have identified successfully all of the eligible households. The funding that is available will provide those households with what they determine to be their most urgent needs, whether that is cleanup, demolition, rebuilding. In some instances, it will even be closing costs for a new home because their existing home is not inhabitable. And all of that is being very successfully handled through the Salvation Army. There are additional resources through the Small Business Association, which includes low-interest loans for both businesses and individuals. And those resources became available as a result of our disaster declaration. And we'd be happy to bring a United Fund presentation to the board to bring you more detail and whatever other information would be
Yeah, and
helpful.
maybe a presentation or a cheat sheet, because I get a
Sure.
lot of calls and, you know, I'll check and see.
Absolutely.
But then I bother staff and things of that nature, and so I get a lot of calls, and so if I could, yeah, that's very useful information, and I appreciate it.
Yes.
But I'm not gonna remember everything you told
No,
me
no,
tomorrow,
absolutely.
you know?
We
So-
are,
So,
it's,
yeah,
it's taken some time to get to this point, and it's going to sound like an excuse, but please know our priority was mobilizing those funds and getting them out in the community.
sure.
So we've had to postpone other projects and things of that nature through United Fund. And if more need comes up, we're more than happy to continue supporting the community in any way possible.
Sure. Okay, yeah, no, I appreciate that, but like I say, a presentation or a cheat
Absolutely.
sheet or something would be real beneficial, because like I say, a lot of this is in my district, and
Yes.
I get tons of calls and emails, and it gets overwhelming trying to find answers.
As something to stand in that gap for you, we do have frequently asked questions sheets on our website for both residential and business purposes.
Okay, on the
So-
county website,
No, on the United Fund website.
on
that
the
you-
United Fund
That
website.
you can direct there, and I'll be happy to share a link with Terry.
If you would, because then as we
Absolutely.
get calls, we can escort them to more help,
Yes.
instead of me wondering, heck, I
Yes.
don't know, I need to find that out.
No, we appreciate that, and we also appreciate, I know that there have been meetings where you have shared information and spoken very kindly about United Fund, and we very much appreciate that.
Okay, yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, could I, just to summarize that, United Fund has gotten pledges of north of $2 million, 2.2 million, something like that.
Yes,
Distributed to businesses and homes is 1.7 million,
1.97.
1.97, so I'm just right at $2 million.
We are
that has
still
been
waiting for
distributed.
some others to come in. Right,
Some of
we-
those
we
pledges have not been received, and so right now, we're kind of at a limit of what money has actually been received, and which is right at
Yes.
2 million that has been
Yes.
distributed.
We have distributed everything that has come in, and all the administrative costs, including the costs for having our MOU with Local First, those have been absorbed by United Fund and have not been funded by donated dollars.
Well, then when you get into legal use of state and federal money, or us borrowing money, to plug in better information on what's needed from the community individuals to help reestablish themselves in homes and businesses and stuff, you know, I mean, and this has been a great project, and I'm glad we spent 2 million. But we need another million to help the people in reestablishment. That's information I don't know, and maybe Salvation Army would, on, you know, this is what they're getting calls for, but there's no funding, or this is what has been asked for funding and they don't have it. And is it legal to use money if we borrow money for things of that nature to help some of the people get reestablished? You know, those are, like I say, there's never enough answers for the questions that I get, but.
From a purely mathematical perspective, borrowing money and financing it over any length of time to use for non-county projects would get us in hot water with the IRS
Okay,
at the
just a
very
question.
least.
Just a question.
Right,
Yeah, sorry, guys.
I got a
can't help
foot in
you.
each
Well,
world.
no, that's fine, but if I get a call, it's like, man, I can't help you because the federal
Yeah.
government won't let me. Hey, that's an answer.
Yeah,
Do you
no,
know
that-
what I mean?
yeah.
As I get questions from constituents, it's my job to give them an answer. They elected me to
Absolutely.
represent them. And if it's, okay, I'm sorry, but the federal government won't allow it, and then instead of saying, well, you guys just got all this money and you're not helping me with nothing, it's like, okay, sorry, I can't because the federal government won't let me. But anyway, yeah. So
It's more,
anyway,
it's more nuanced than that, but that's, right
Okay.
there is that's your bottom line.
that's fine. Yeah,
So,
thank you.
yes, thank you. Okay, I'll turn it back over to Homero.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
if I could, the money that is being requested through the state legislature, the timing of that is we won't know until probably June when the state passes the budget. And so we're hopeful that there is 25 million or something.
Or two.
to put in the state.
Anything.
Two, anything would be great. But as we go into a presentation of financial resources and cash flow and that, it's
And I
kind of all,
understand a lot of these projects have to be done in 220 days. I do realize that.
absolutely,
Like I said, I appreciate we're looking ahead because we got 220 days to finish these.
yeah.
But, yeah, I appreciate that.
We're hopeful that some
Yeah.
comes through.
Homero, do you have any more?
That was it for me, thank you.
Okay, so, what's next on the work session?
Mr. Chairman, if we could have Mr. Mark Reeder with Stiefel come and give us a presentation of just an option for us to discuss, a potential funding to address the needs that have been identified by Mr. Vela.
Thank you, Mr. Reed.
It's just an option, so something for
morning,
us to
Mr.
consider.
Chairman.
Morning.
Would you like to take a break before this, or you?
No,
is
we're
everybody
good.
Plow ahead?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay.
Thank you for, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for having me. Nice to be in front of you again. I've had the privilege, I think as you're aware, of working with the county over the years on the issuance of bonds for public infrastructure. As you remember, we did the pensions. If you remember the public pensions, I know how serious this board takes the issuance of any debt obligations. I clearly understand that, and so I've been hired to help with some of these questions.
Okay.
And first of all, I want to say I'm sorry. I mean, I just got brought into this in the last 3 weeks, and what you guys are dealing with is just something I've never seen before, nor have you. So I congratulate leadership, the board and staff for all the work that's gone into this, and how do we do it the right way, right? As we're trying to get all the information in. And I thought Homero's knowledge in this subject matter is pretty amazing in terms of all the different funding sources and all that. So I'm still learning, so bear with me. We don't have to make any decisions today. We're here as a work session, and I'm gonna run you through some options, okay? In the event the county is gonna need to do some kind of a borrowing for cash flow. The county will have some responsibility, but at the end of the day, we're hoping that this is a lot of money going into infrastructure, most of which is paid for by feds in the state. That's our goal. And there's some unknowns with regard to how much, but I want to walk you through some ideas for you to think about as we continue to work together. Sound good?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, so, here we go, right here for this audience here. So I'm gonna go pretty fast. So here, when, I always like to, when I have opportunity to work with our counties and our cities out there, what are our objectives? And we just chatted about them. One of our objective is to limit the amount of any debt obligations by Gila County. May not be able to do that, but whatever we do, we want to limit it. We're gonna evaluate all the options out there. We're gonna work with you to make sure that we remain in compliance, because as I understand it, we have to meet these pretty quick deadlines to be reimbursed, right? I think I saw some in September, I think I saw some in June, give or take. So we got, county's been working really hard to get there. Sounds like you're gonna get there. Okay, number 4, if we do end up issuing some bonds, okay, we want to pay this debt off as fast as we can. When those checks come in, we get a call, boom, it's off the balance sheet. And that, okay. If we do a financing, we're gonna take the money and put it into interest earning accounts while we spend it. We're probably gonna close a transaction probably by May-ish, June-ish, to meet cash flow, which we can do, walk you through that. Award construction contracts in a timely manner, and accelerate to the extent possible the completion of all these projects, okay? The awarding of construction contracts, very interesting in this case, because you've got partners. And the big numbers, as I'm learning more about this, is NRCS, fair? That's where the big numbers are. And Homero suggests and tells us that we're gonna enter into a contract with a contractor, and the source of repayment for that contract has to be obligated up front. So we're gonna have a contract with NRCS to pay us. These are questions, I don't know if we have all the answers, but when we award that contract, we got our good county attorneys and our bond attorneys and all that, we're gonna be locked into the federal money, right? And then to the extent the county has to pay, then we're gonna deal with that. So we'll have sufficient funding on the day that the board awards these expensive contracts. All good? Okay, so just real quick, some of this is a reminder. We did a transaction for the county in 2019. We did a transaction for the county in 2020. And I remember I was asking Mr. Christensen earlier, all three of you were on the board in 2020, correct? Mr. Christensen?
Yes.
So on the right-hand side, remember, when COVID hit, we went to all-time low interest rates, remember? We had a 65 basis point 10-year treasury. We're at 430 today, remember? We got lucky. So the county, this board and staff, with our advice, went to the market to refinance out 7.2% accrual to PSPRS for sheriff, and we replaced it with 1.6 to 3.2 money. Remember? Taxable money. It wasn't public infrastructure. So we saved the county $7.5 million. So you got about 24 million outstanding right now, 13.4 million of which is our PSPRS debt that we otherwise would have had to pay anyway, as you know, but we refinanced it out at low interest rates and saved the county. So good job on that. And then the only other debt you really have, you go back to 19, we did the TCM building and the animal shelter project back in the day, but this is back in 2019. And then we also did a refinancing that saved you $700,000. So I wanted to compliment the county that you know, I would carve out PSPRS because really that's on the balance sheet anyway, as you all know from over the years, right? That you have very little debt outstanding. I work with most counties around the state, so good job on that. You've been very careful. You've been largely a pay-as-you-go capital improvement county with, you know, prudent resources and very thoughtful thinking on this. Now, with inflationary going on right now, as you know, it's getting harder and harder to be a pay-as-you-go city or a pay-as-you-go county, for the reasons you're aware of. So we're starting to see a little more issuance, simply because the project scope and project budgets have doubled in the last, you know, really, what, 3-4 years. So anyway, I wanted to start off real quick to give the board a reminder of your debt. These are revenue bonds issued by your county, if you remember, AA rated. Good job on that, by the way. You're a AA rated county. You're a higher rated county than some of the bigger ones, okay? Good management, good liquidity, okay? Not a lot of debt outstanding, and very, very strong bond covenants when we go out in the marketplace. Okay, so there's your debt. Now, just to give you a reminder, if we come back, you know, in a month or so, we got a calendar here for you to do some kind of a borrowing. Maybe it's 15 million, maybe it's 18 million, bear with us, right? We got time. We're gonna pledge these revenues. These are revenues that all of our counties around the state pledge towards a bondholder, so they get paid, everybody's happy, your 18 million rounded numbers. Local, state shared, net of all tax and access, okay? Vehicle license tax, you're about a 2.5 million, that's a nice source of revenue for you. And then we started throwing in PILT because it's been such a good revenue stream for our counties, and you're getting about 4.4 million a year on that. Okay, so just, again, giving you a little heads up here, a little reminder, so that if we come back in a month or so, you're gonna see these numbers. All right, so we were on the call the other day, and Homero, you know, did a good job, and we were trying to figure out with staff, what do we think the county may have to do to cover their share, okay, relative to cash flow, in the hopes that a significant amount of this will come in down the road, right? That's what we have to hope for. So as I understand the reimbursement, and Homero's and staff is better at this than I am, we got to kind of figure out when we're going to get the repayment if we go out to the bond market so we can get this debt paid off ASAP, okay? So Homero showed some numbers, I think somewhere, I round a lot, at around 15 million county share, okay? Maybe it was a little less than that. And we had run some numbers earlier at about 18 million because we want to be conservative here, and we can certainly downsize it, but let's go with 18 million for the moment. Let's say when we finish our homework in the next few weeks and report back to the board with better information in terms of some of this, as best we can. If we were to do in column 4 an $18 million bond issue for Gila County for this purpose, we would do, initially we thought we would do a 10-year amortization, and we can go longer, we can go shorter, bear with me, okay? The annual payment in column 6 would be about $2 million a year, okay? The way we're gonna set this up so that we have maximum flexibility with some unknowns is that we're gonna set it up such that the county can pay down this debt at any time with 30 days notice at no penalty. It's almost like a line of credit. So we've got some whisper numbers on this, and I'm thinking right now, out of 10-year amortization, about 425 money. Bear with me. 4.25 money-ish. So I'll report back to the board, you know, when we move this thing along, if we move it along. I just wanted to share with the board like I have with staff. I think that's kind of in the ballpark today. Let me pause. Helpful so far? Mm-hmm. Okay. I know there's I know there's a lot going on here. So I like the way that we're going to be able to do this such that if we overborrow, right, and we might, and like Homero said, maybe our 20% construction contingency comes in lower, then we're going to be able to kind of reconcile all this cash at the end of the day from the feds and from the final construction contracts and all that, and see what we have to get this thing off the books. Okay, so that's that. When I ran the numbers on the back of the envelope, if we did 15 million, we're down to about $1,875,000, down below 2 million, down to $1,850,000, $875, give or take. So, you know, the risk here, which I don't think we can avoid, is that something happens at the federal or state level and they never come through with their reimbursement. But I don't think, as I understand NRCS especially, they pay every 30 days. And we would know that, Homero needs to help me out on this, on the day that we award the construction contract, fair? So I think we can mitigate the risk at the time that we, you know, do some of this. Okay, that pretty much kind of concludes my presentation. Let me just share with you what kind of the next steps are. This is a study session, and we may come back and have another study session in a few weeks. I'll wait to hear from staff on that. But remember, when counties issue bonds for public infrastructure or any debt obligations under the statute, Cities don't have to do this, only counties, if you remember. We have to have a public hearing. So, if we wanted to meet a time frame of doing some kind of a borrowing, the amount of which we'll figure out in the coming weeks, and we want to close the bond issue in May. Now, in the meantime, you might have some construction invoices coming in on construction, and if you do, that's fine. We don't want to get in the way of anything, right? All these, it's the September deadline. The county can pay the contractor, and then the county can be reimbursed out of the bond issue when we do it. And we'll have what's known as a reimbursement resolution for that. Okay, so nothing should really get in your way of cutting checks as projects move forward on an expedited manner. So if we wanted to have money in May-ish, the thought would be that we would have our public hearing probably on March 3rd, the way this all lines up under the statute. So we're January now, 45 days from now, we would have this public hearing. Now, we gotta publish the public hearing in the newspaper of general circulation that shows the project cost and the interest and all that. It's generally a very conservative number, because ATRA put us into this box. It makes it difficult with moving markets and moving budgets and all that. So in this case, probably we would need to publish it by February 4th, so we'd probably need to kind of get some answers in the next couple of weeks or so in terms of the amount that we might borrow, and maybe we go on at a high level and then we start to throttle it back, and we can downsize the issue all the way up until the day we sell bonds. So if we have some answers in a couple weeks, we can kind of keep this schedule. If we need a little more time, let's take it. But I wanted to share with you kind of the publication process, the public hearing, followed by a resolution approved by the board to do a financing in the amount not to exceed X amount. And get your money by May-ish, June-ish, which I think works with all the other. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I know it's been a long day, members of the board. I hope that was helpful. Sorry I don't have the exact answers right now, but I think with the expertise in this room, I think we can get there. Questions?
Could you start over?
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Who are you?
I have a question here, just to try and figure it out. You have every number there is on this piece of paper, this one.
Yeah.
Okay, so we start off with an estimated $17,844,000 as the initial borrowing amount, correct?
Where, is that in Homero's numbers, you mean, or where's
No,
that
well,
number
it's right
coming
here,
from?
$17,844,538 under unaudited actual pledged
Oh,
revenue.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I'm with you now. There you go, right here.
Yeah, I'm actually on the other page you were on.
Yeah, the number's there too, in column
Yeah,
two. There's
yeah,
your
it is.
17
And so
million.
then, now, when we go over here to column 4, it says principal. Why do those numbers not add up to that same 17 million?
Oh, okay. So the column 2 is the revenues that you're gonna pledge to get to our AA. There's all of our revenues on the previous page. Okay?
Okay,
Yeah. And then column 4 is our bond issue for 18 million for our projects. You see it at the bottom?
I see. Okay,
And then the interest cost at 4.32, that was an estimate at 4.2 for a total of 22. We're hoping that's a high number as we pay down debt. Then column 7 is your combined debt with your pension bond in the 2019 that we did, right? And then on the right-hand column is that for every dollar of debt the county has, this is what investors look at, we got over $4 in revenues to cover it. That's considered extremely positive.
okay,
So,
all right.
helpful?
Well, I'm
Lot of
pretty-
numbers.
I'm a pretty simple guy. How much annually is this new debt, 18 million,
Right.
gonna cost us?
Okay, right there in column 6, Mr. Chairman.
6, that's the
Yeah.
column about.
There's that 2 million.
And so we have to pay an additional 2 million that, above and beyond what we're paying right now.
That would be your,
Okay,
that's right.
all right.
That would come out of your budget, right? That's why this is so important. That'll come out, that would be your budget amount if you didn't pay any of the 18 million off, right? That's where we're hoping to come in and pay big chunks off when this money comes in. Now, maybe this is 15 million. We're hoping it's lower than 18 million, right? We threw a conservative number in there. We hope it's 15 million, maybe it's 14.5. So that'll be in your budget, and each budget year will address your debt service, and each budget year as that federal money and state money comes in, we're hoping that number continues to drop. So you know what your risk is to the general fund at the end of the day to help with all the cleanup and all the public infrastructure improvements.
So, Mr. Menlove, you have to let us know whether or not you have that money.
Mr. Chairman, members,
Here comes the money lady. She's got the money.
May I? We, as Mark showed you, the 17 million is the pledged revenue of the 17,844,000 that is in column 2. That is the total pledged revenue that is available to us to pledge as effectively collateral for the bond. As Mark is showing you in column 3, that's our total current debt service is so we're currently paying 2.2, and Mark and his team are presenting to us that we could add another $2 million in debt service payments over the next 10 years that would facilitate the 18 million, would bring our total debt service to 4.3 million.
Okay.
And so you've got 17 million in available resources, and you in this algebra, you would be committing 4.3 of it to debt service, which would leave you 13.5 million in operating flow through those pledged revenues. And
Can we afford to drop our operating revenues $2 million? Our operational costs. Do you understand the question I'm trying to
I
ask?
do
Okay.
understand the question.
Okay.
So there are a couple of advantages to using this model. This model would give us the cash up front and would cost us an additional $2 million a year going forward. So everything would be done and paid for. And then we would just make the debt service payments. In addition, the debt service comes off our expenditure limit, so we wouldn't be penalized by the state of Arizona for it. And this would stretch the $18 million over the next 13 years, the way this is mapped out, so that that would allow the cash flow to better align with our needs and our capacity. If you were to say, just use all the cash reserves, every dollar the county has, you would eliminate those reserves, and we would, right, if we just dumped $18 million into something and waited for the feds or the state to pay us back on 75%, you would be out that money for 8 or 10 years. This way, we're only out an additional $2 million a year over the next 10 years.
Mr. Chairman,
Right,
Chairman?
and that would assume no reimbursement.
Yes, sir.
I think the bottom line is, in our daily operations, how does this impact us? And it would be significant to us to suddenly throw $2 million additional costs into what we currently have. What is it going to mean to our employees? It's going to mean that we have done very well in giving employees raises. You have done very well in giving employees raises. Since COVID, you have structured things to be able to take care of our employees to the best that we possibly can. I commend you for that. Going forward, an additional $2 million stresses that significantly, of being able to have the flexibility or ability to work with our employees. There's just no way around it, that we can't throw $2 million on top of our current budget without it impacting us in a significant way. And that's really what this discussion is about and what the decisions are gonna have to be. I did want to point out that Gila County, because of your action and the things that you've done, that we have a AA bond rating. For rural counties, that is unheard of, to have that. It's typically A or less to have a bond rating of that nature. It's because of how you have, as Mr. Reeder pointed out, that you have been conservative. You've taken these actions. You've got a good cash reserve, done these things that have given a AA rating, which brings these interest rates that Mr. Reeder has identified, brought them down so they're as low, not as low as they can be. They're bigger counties, Maricopa, Pima, that might have a better bond rating. But the reason they have a better bond rating is because they have more of a variety of resources. They get revenues from different resources that we have available here at Gila County. Because we're rural, we have limited business opportunities and things like that. So you have done a tremendously good job to have that AA rating, and it helps us a lot. The one thing's in discussing with Mr. Reeder to give the Board of Supervisors the greatest flexibility is that we don't necessarily have to draw all this money down, that we have to be able to say, okay, if we do $15 million, do $18 million, and we only need $5 million for the cash flow and things like that, that we only are gonna be liable, or as Mark put it, on our balance sheet, that is the amount that we are gonna have to repay. And then as we get reimbursements, that we have to have the flexibility to get that reimbursement and make that payment and get that debt off of our books as soon as possible. So we're not carrying something for 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, where we could pay it now because we've got a reimbursement. So that drives a little bit of the interest rate up to have that flexibility. But I think that having that flexibility far outweighs the minimal interest rate increased, so that we can get rid of the debt as soon as possible. This gives, it's an option to give you as a board the flexibility to meet projects that you identify as critical and essential to the citizens of southern Gila County, and an ability to get those taken care of as soon as possible. And it's going to be tight. It's going to put $2 million or somewhere around that of additional expenses that we currently don't have. And that will be a challenge for us to overcome and meet that obligation.
Maybe just a couple other things to think about. I'm sorry, do you have a
No,
question? I'm sorry.
I'm just gonna say, it's an obligation we can't dodge. We can't get around this. So, like Mark put forth earlier, it's more like a line of credit. I like that. I like the flexibility of being able to pay it off early. Soon as, like you said, the sooner we can get wiped off our sheets, the better it is. So, but I don't see a way around it to achieve what needs to be done to help constituents. I don't see, there's no way around it.
And Chairman Supervisor Klein, that's why we are bringing this forward to you. That there is an option, there's a path available for us to address the projects that have been identified.
Maybe a couple things that might be helpful as we continue to think this through. I'd like to work with staff and, Homero in terms of coming back to the board with what we think might be realistic on reimbursement. Okay? In other words, could we, from a risk factor, could we assume we would get, $6 million back, and if so, when? Help the board with this decision so that we can get that off, off the books, if you will. Another thing we could do here, again, because this impacts your budget, this is public infrastructure that lasts a long time. Fair? Most of the projects on that list, I think most of them are long-term. So generally speaking, we'll go longer on the payoff. and match the debt service to the average life of the public interest. So it's not uncommon for our counties to go 20 years on 15, 20 years on infrastructure. Fair? So we could do that. That 2 million goes down to, you know, 1.7, 1.6, right? To help you with your budget, and then try to assess how much we think we can get back as best we can from the feds and the state, and show you what the debt service will be over time based on some fair assumptions to help you with the decision on how much to issue and how you want to structure it, to also, as best you can, meet your budgetary challenges. So we got some other options here, I guess is my point.
So there's one thing about all this project, and I've said it before, Mark,
Yeah.
in prior meetings. These aren't projects that could last a long time, no.
Okay.
You take the sediment removal and stuff like that, we're not fixing the problem, we're just pulling it out of the areas where it's at. And so when you look at future floods, which there will be, don't know when, but there will
Yep.
be, that's just gonna wash back in and fill things up again. So we're gonna continue to have these problems. So that, to me, even makes it more wanting to pay this off as soon as we can. What I'm saying is in my opinion, I wouldn't wanna see us stretch this out for, let's just say 10 years, and in 3 years from now, we have it hit again.
Yeah.
And we're back in the same boat we are right now.
Right.
Cause that's where we're headed. So the sooner we can do these projects, get reimbursed from whoever's gonna reimburse us, and pay the debt off, the better we're gonna be. Otherwise, it's gonna stack up on top of us, and we won't see daylight out of that.
Mr. Chair, may I?
Mhm.
I want to thank staff for thinking this far ahead. And I want to thank you for being here today, because these projects have to get done. And having the money available to do them in 220 days is extremely important, because we've had to give government money back before because we were unable to complete projects in 220 days. But we have learned from our past. And the way I look at your numbers, that's worst case scenario. That's if nobody gives us a dime.
Right.
And that's not gonna happen. It may take them a year to get it to us, it may take 2 years, but I can't imagine them not ever giving us a dime.
Right.
And you being to come in at about a little over 4% interest, that's great. I mean, we're down and out, you know, and we're looking for money. I mean, you're not used to being down and out and having somebody help you. It's like, yeah, we can help you, but it's gonna cost you 7 or 8%. So thank you very much for that. And so, you know, the way I look at it, if, when it's all said and done, when the projects are done, and what reimbursement we get back, we're probably looking at 25%, not 100% of those numbers that you got there. Okay. If there's overrides or something, maybe 30%. 30% of $2 million a year, yeah, I think we can afford that. And so that's my 2 cents on it. And I thank staff, because like I said, we've got awarded 7 projects in the past, and we're only able to get 1 of them done. And most of those were in my district as well. And so I think it's great that we've learned from our past. I think it's great that staff is thinking this far ahead to get us in line to not lose projects and be able to afford them. And so I thank staff very much, and I thank you very much for helping us with that percentage and allowing us to pay back at any time whatever amount we want to and not penalize us for it. So I have nothing to say but thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for everything, helping me
Yeah, Steve, thank
get through the numbers.
Sure.
There is no doubt we have to do this. I mean, there's no doubt. We have to. I just want to know the impact to our regular budget.
Sure.
And I don't want the employees to suffer. I don't want suffering that way. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, how can we manage our way through this? And I think we're just going to have to do that 1 year at a time. So
Yeah. No, that's great. I appreciate that. And,
Yeah.
you know, again, I'm, for example, just again, things to think about, if you wanna do some, you know, interest-only payments for a couple budget years, that's an option. That helps you with your budget, right? You minimize it. I know you don't like just paying interest, nobody does, but if we can run all these numbers for the board and for staff, and, you know, we're not making any decisions today, that's why we wanted to have this, you know, educational work session, so think about that. And then I think, from what I'm hearing, then maybe for direction, so we can all keep things moving, you know, if we can get some decisions in a couple of weeks, on these numbers, we can initiate this public hearing process, or help me out, we have one more study session at the next meeting, you help me out here, and then we initiate all of the process we have to go through together. So you tell us what direction you'd like us to do, and we'll do it.
Well, Mr. Reader, this
Yeah.
is, being that it's a work session item, we don't take action, we're not gonna vote on that.
Right.
So what, the signaling that we're giving right now is gonna be adequate for staff to proceed.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, what our intent, I believe, is to come back on February 3rd, 2 weeks from today, for the Board of Supervisors to adopt a resolution that we intend to move forward with a financing. What that triggers is then that we can hold the public hearing, which would be on March 3rd. Between February 3rd and March 3rd, we do the public notices, put them in the newspaper, and give the public awareness for March 3rd public hearing that we need to have. And at the public hearing, then you can take action to go forward. Then Mark needs a couple of months after that to put together the whole package and get this done, which he's saying is by March, early June at the latest, that we should be able to get the funding. So those are the big steps over the next couple of months. February 3rd to pass a resolution that we intend to go forward. March 3rd for a public hearing, and then you would take a vote of what you're actually going to approve at that point in time.
Is it not possible to do the 27th of January for a resolution? Or is it not needed?
Because of timing, I think we'd be fine to do it on March 3rd. It's not gonna, a
Yeah.
week is not gonna,
I think sorry to step in here, just wanna make sure we communicate. So I think in order to get the publication in the newspaper, this is part of the process, right? I think Paul, needs to have an answer on that, by February 4th, James. And, in order to meet that, we have to get it a few days early, so we'd have to put in the numbers to the newspaper probably early next week, okay? And that just goes to the newspaper with the high dollar amounts. Go ahead.
so Mr. Chairman, Mark,
Yeah.
over the next 2 weeks, next week or
Yeah.
on February 3rd, what is the best date for the Board of Supervisors to pass a resolution that we intend to go forward?
Okay. If we want to meet
Can we have the numbers solidified
right,
in a week, or is it gonna take 2 weeks?
right. If we want to meet the March 3rd public hearing date, right, and we can move that if you want. I think we got some wiggle room in that, right? Then we need to get conservative estimated numbers. Is it going to be 18 million or 15 million by early next week, which is doable. If it's okay with the county to put high numbers in the newspaper about a potential financing, then we have the public hearing on the 3rd. We can continue to whittle down that number if necessary. We can't go above it, right? And move forward and have money by mid-May.
So, February 3rd for the resolution. That's what I'm hearing. Okay?
Okay? And we'll
And
get the
Mr. Chairman,
conservative numbers in
if I could
advance.
make sure, right now, in our discussions, we've had 18 million as a discussion. Mr. Reader has said that we can reduce that amount. So I
Yeah.
believe, my preference at this point is to ensure that we have the resources necessary. Again, flexibility that we're gonna draw what we need to continue on with that $18 million and then reduce, it's easier to reduce it than to say anywhere along this process, no, we gotta add $3 million on top of that. So that, you can, I'm gonna proceed with the $18 million request.
18,195,000.
Let's do that. I think that sounds like it's conservative.
Mr. Chair, if I may have, okay, so I guess Homero's left the room, maybe Christine can answer that. Okay, some of these projects may start, I'm not sure when some of these projects may start, but if we're gonna have funding available, and these projects have to be done by September, if we don't get funding until July, that's only 3 months of available money.
Mr. Chair,
So I'm wondering, okay, can we cushion that if we don't get if we get money in May, rather than wait till June or July, the sooner we can get money, excuse me, the more ready we are for construction. And if we need to start construction before we get funding, do we have cushion funding that we can use until we get that funding to replace it?
So my understanding is that we can build the resolution to include the board's capacity to reimburse ourselves from the proceeds of the bond.
Okay,
So if you use existing cash on hand, you could reimburse yourselves for it and not be permanently out of
okay,
the
yeah, because
funding.
I guess I didn't,
Excuse me.
going through all of this, I didn't want a couple months to ruin some of our
No, that's fine.
construction projects
So
that are
February 3rd is our board
mandatory to
meeting
get
day,
done.
right? February
Yes.
3rd, we'll have a reimbursement resolution,
Okay,
and I think we can accelerate the closing on this to a little quicker than this.
okay, yeah, because when we were talking in the paper and stuff and getting finalized dates and stuff,
Okay.
I'm thinking, you know, we gotta start construction way before 90 days of completion.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Humphrey, Ms. Smith asked me that very question
Okay,
here a minute ago, and my response was, we have reserves,
okay,
and we have contingencies
all
that,
right. Yeah, this is a discussion, and so I've got a lot warmer fuzzy feeling now than I did earlier.
after the resolution is passed, then everything, any expenses after that date, and even the ones before, can be reimbursed by the
and
funding.
then public hearing March 3rd then, all good?
Public hearing March 3rd.
And then bond resolution, come back to the board to approve all the legal documents, right? April 7th, we're parallel tracking everything on the financing, aren't we? You approve it, we're gonna close it as quick as we can thereafter. And we can accelerate things, pretty quick in this process. Okay, so you good, Chiefs?
I think you said bond resolution on March 3rd, it's February 3rd?
I'm sorry,
resolution?
right there, April 7th.
For-
March 3rd, public hearing, April 7th, you have a board meeting on April 7th?
Mm-hmm.
That's when they would adopt the bond resolution.
Okay.
So we have to wait 2 weeks after the public hearing.
What are we doing in 2 weeks?
What's that?
What are we doing in 2 weeks?
It's a
February.
resolution. It's,
Oh,
February 3rd.
yeah, you don't need to, it's just approval to move forward. I mean, we can have a, we can, if you
it's
want a
a
resolution.
a
we can-
reimbursement resolution.
Yeah, it's the reimbursement resolution.
Okay,
The bond resolution will come later, but let's do the reimbursement resolution
okay,
and set the stage for exactly what we talked about.
Right.
That sound good?
yes,
Okay, I think we're there.
okay.
Okay, thank you for that. A lot of moving
Mark.
parts there.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
Good?
it.
Okay.
I appreciate everyone, as we patiently go through a pretty complex situation, so thank you. I didn't ask how much, reserves we have, but I'm sure we have plenty to get us through what we've been discussing, so, okay? All right, anything else, Mr. Menlove?
No, thank you for your time today. It's really critical, it's really important, and I appreciate your sensitivity and your willingness to support these projects. They're important to the county.
Thank you.
So thank you.
If there's nothing else from the supervisors, then I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you.